like to give me $5, I'm good with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call our city council meeting to order. I ask that you please rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by, let's see. Councilman, would you like to do it for us? Thank you.
Father, we thank you for this day you've given us to gather here to conduct your business for this city. We ask your hand be upon us and lead, guide, and direct us in everything we do, and may it be for the benefit of all. And Lord, teach and guide us in everything we do, that is for your purpose. And bless us to follow your will. In Christ's name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Councilman Brown, we have some special guests with us tonight you'd like to recognize?
Yes, sir. And that is the Delters, the Charleston chapter of Delters, North Charleston. I'm sorry. I'm glad you said that. I like
Y'all can
that.
spank him anytime you want to, okay?
And that's yes, thank you, ladies. That's a group that's been here with us from 1988, and an organization that started in 1913. I think we're coming up with quite a few years here. And they're just looking at ways on how they can be of help to the city of North Charleston and the residents. So I welcome them, and I think that you'll find them a great pleasure.
Thank you, ladies, for your service to the community. I believe Chief Bolano has a presentation he'd like to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mayor Summey, members of council. I'll be back up in just a few minutes, but I'd like to introduce Chief Thomas Weber. He is the National Director for ISO, Community Hazard Mitigation, to begin the special presentation. Chief Weber.
Mayor, Council, it's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening to give you your latest ISO report. In 2012, you were one of the first communities that was graded under our new schedule, and you did exceptionally well. You went from a Class 3 to a Class 2. Well, I'm here to tell you tonight, 4 years later, next slide, that you are now ISO's newest Class 1 community. Congratulations. That's a two-class jump in 4 short years. That's excellent work by your community and your fire department. And I'd like to take you through what the process was, how we got there, and what you need to do to stay there, because it's a community expectation that you continue to improve, and you're doing a good job at that. Next slide. ISO's Public Protection Program effectively grades over 47,000 fire protection districts in the country. And as a Class 1, you're one of only 0.5%. That's all there are, Class 1s, 0.5%. When we grade, we use our public protection classification to look at the overall fire suppression rating of the community. It is a community grading. It's not just the fire department, but it includes the water services, it includes the 911 communication center, and it includes community risk reduction. And I'll go into each of those in a little more detail. We know there is better fire protection as measured by our PPC because we actually have actuaries that study the losses in your communities on a regular basis, and they validate that grading. If you're not actually having losses that equal what a Class 1 should be, we'll find out about it and we will come back and regrade. Next slide. When we do our evaluation, we use a fire suppression rating schedule. It is a schedule that just does, like I said, not just the fire department. We do look at your first alarm assignment capability. What you can deliver in the first 8 minutes is the most important factor. The schedule is worth 105.5 points. And it is an acknowledged, accepted measurement of a community's fire suppression capabilities. We now use only nationally recognized standards like American Water Works, APCO for Communications, and National Fire Protection Association. Next slide. The schedule is simple. It's 90 to 100 points as a Class 1, and you can actually get over 100 points now. and 0 to 9.99 points is a Class 10, which in our eyes is no recognized fire protection. Next slide. Here's where the country is with, and this is an important slide because when you see the next slide, you'll understand why. But here's where the country is with the classes. That will equal just about 46,200. We're a little less than 47,000 fire districts in the country now, and we are actually at 260 Class 1 fire departments, and that's still only 0.5%. Next slide. South Carolina should be proud, because if you look at this slide, most of the protection is towards the left, which is Class 5 or better, actually Class 6 or better in your case, and you have no Class 10s. That is one of the best states in the nation, I can tell you that. And it's really important that the state be recognized for having no Class 10 areas and such a high level of community fire protection. Next slide. This is a little quick shot of the United States. Green is Class 5 or better, and you can see how South Carolina fares. Next slide. When we measure the fire protection, we measure the communication center, as I had mentioned. We look at all aspects of the communication center, their ability to receive a call, process a call, and deliver the call to the appropriate agencies. We look at the fire matrix in your community. We look at what your risks are. We actually grade your risk as well as grade your fire departments. Then we look at your department, and we'll look at each aspect of that. We look at your water supply, and we look at your community risk reduction. Next slide. Under emergency communications, we look at your 911 system. We look in, I can go into detail, but I'll keep this short for you. We look at your telecommunicators, your people in your center. We look at their training and certification, and we look at your dispatch circuits, your ability to deliver the message. Next slide. Here's your score, a perfect 10. That's to be commended. You've gotten full credit for communications, the answering in the 911 system, the training and the time it takes the telecommunicators to process the call, and your ability to maintain direct communications with the fire department. Next slide. Your fire department. We look at your fire engines, your reserve engines, your pump capacity, your ladders or service companies. We look at your deployment analysis, and that's a big one that's new in this new schedule. Your deployment analysis is how long it takes you to get to the call. When we look at your deployment analysis, we used to look at it just from a basis of 1.5 miles and 2.5 miles. Now we actually take the responses to the fires and do that analysis of actually how long it took you to get to that call and make that process. And that's where you did very well, and we'll go over that. We look at your company personnel, your training, and your operations. Next slide. For engine companies, you have exactly what we're looking for. You have full credit there. You have enough reserve engines. You have enough pump capacity. You have 2.53 points out of 4 for ladder companies or service companies, and you have full credit for reserves. Here's the big one, deployment analysis. You got almost 9 out of 10 points, and 93% of the time, the first engine got to the fire in under 5 minutes and 30 seconds. That's the standard we use. 75% of the time, the full first alarm assignment got to the call in under 9 minutes and 30 seconds. That's to be commended, and that's why you got such a high score. And that's an important factor for you to continue to maintain as a community may grow and you may have to expand your department. Being an accredited fire department also helps with that because the department has to maintain that report annually for accreditation, and that helps us take a look at what you're doing, and that keeps you in that area. Credit for training, 0.5 point. We talked today, we met earlier with all the department heads to discuss where improvements could be made. They know where they can make up that 0.5 point if they need to. I did skip personnel. Let's go back to company personnel. 10.22 out of 15. For your style and type of fire department, where you are not an ambulance service provider also, that's an excellent score. The only departments that also provide ambulance service are getting higher scores than that. And that is so you understand, The optimum number for us is 6 persons per apparatus. That's the gold standard. And major cities don't get full credit for that. So that's the most expensive item in there. I wouldn't be the guy to come in here and tell you got to spend money for more personnel. But as you expand, you have to consider that, because anything that lowers that number could impact your grading. And then we had the operational considerations, and that was full credit. Community risk reduction is important because for the longest time, ISO had fire prevention in their schedule. And then back in the early 80s, they took it out. The actuaries said they couldn't put a value on it. So they said we couldn't leave it in the schedule. Well, sometimes the actuaries are good with numbers, but reality is a whole different ballgame. And we all know it's super important to prevent the fire from ever occurring. And that's the most important thing we can do. And that's the best thing for our customers, the insurance industry. So we added community risk reduction or fire prevention back into the schedule. We look at your code adoption and regulations, your staffing in your fire prevention office. We look at your public education, and we look at your fire investigation. Next slide. You got 5.29 points out of 5.5 points. I want to tell you that is absolutely excellent, and I think it's the highest score I've seen. So that means you are working in the right direction with your department, trying to prevent them from ever being needed, and that's the most important thing. There's a little room for improvement, but realistically, our standards are pretty high, and keeping that 5.29 is the challenge. Stay right there, and that means you're doing an excellent job. The average across the country for Class 1s is 4.85, so you're doing an excellent job. Next slide, please. Finally, we talk about water. I don't have much to say. It's an excellent score, 39.75 points. The only reason you don't have a perfect 40 is you have, I think it's 89 fire hydrants that don't have the large connection on front, and we take a little bit of points away for that. So again, maintaining the water system as the community grows is vitally important, because without water, you can't put out the fire. Next slide. This is an overview of the entire score. As you can see, you're 94.37. That is an excellent Class 1 score. It means that you are in a range where you have some room to help maintain that Class 1. I've seen a lot of Class 1s at 90.13. They didn't have a whole lot of room. They had to work really hard. You need to keep it. It's really important that you do, but you have the ability to do that with that score. Any questions about divergence there? Divergence is simply the difference between the water department score and the fire department score. If they were both perfect, it would be 0. And one more slide. Again, congratulations, being ISO's newest Class 1 community.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make some acknowledgments of those who helped us achieve this score. The effort to achieve a Class 1 ISO rating has been a planned, systematic, and strategic effort that has been going on formally since 2010. There are many people involved in this achievement that I would like to acknowledge. First and foremost, I want to thank Mayor Summey and the City Council members for their strong and sustained support of public safety in the city of North Charleston. And this includes Special Assistant to the Mayor, Ray Anderson, and Julie Elmore as well. Year after year, we receive funding for new or replacement equipment, stations, staffing, equipment, training, inspections, investigations, and prevention education. With many competing priorities, you have maintained consistent focus on the safety of the public, and this rating is a validation of the tremendous support you provide, and I'd like to ask for a round of applause for you all. And I'm also aware that you have a budget workshop tomorrow, and ask that you keep up that support. In addition to the fire department, as Chief Weber mentioned, ISO also evaluates the communication system and the water system. Many municipalities own their own water supply and operate their own dispatch centers, and so they can coordinate that work internally. In North Charleston, we have a much more complex situation. The North Charleston Fire Department has jurisdiction in 3 different counties, as well as donut holes of unincorporated areas. We also work with 2 different major water systems, plus many private hydrant systems owned by businesses or other entities. Our Consolidated Dispatch Center is operated by Charleston County. We directly border or completely surround 8 other fire departments that include career and combination agencies. And we work on a daily basis with a network of automatic and mutual aid partners that extends throughout 3 counties. So there was a great deal of coordination that needed to occur, and all of these partners share in this achievement. For credit for water supply, we thank Mr. Darrell Thompson and his staff with Charleston Water Systems, and Mr. Franklin Infinger and his staff with Dorchester County Waterworks. For credit for emergency communications, I'd like to acknowledge Director Jim Lake of the Charleston County Consolidated 911 Center and his staff, and they are with us here today. Jim and Allison, if you would please stand. The CDC received maximum credit, as Chief Weber mentioned, a full 10 out of 10 for the work that they do dispatching our fire department. A perfect score for dispatching wasn't the only thing that the CDC does for us. They facilitate our ability to work with our auto aid partners, and that gives us the ability to credit those close partners' resources as our own. We can't work with other fire departments if we can't communicate with them, and the CDC makes that possible. So I wanted to be sure to acknowledge Director Lake and his staff. Thank you. Our partner agencies. I mentioned our network of partnerships with other fire departments, and they have been a key to our success. We have our auto aid agreements established in Charleston County. That includes St. Andrews, St. John's, the City of Charleston, and James Island. That's the group affectionately known as the 5 families. We also work under auto aid agreements with Ashley River, Old Fort, and Somerville in Dorchester County, and CMB, Goose Creek Rural, and Hanahan in Berkeley County. And the responses that we reciprocate have helped many of our partners to improve their ISO scores as well. We also work with Charleston County Rescue, Joint Base Charleston, Capstone, and Boeing, and Charleston County EMS and Dorchester County EMS also respond to all of our fire departments. So every single day, many times a day, we work in combination with these partners to provide the closest, most appropriate emergency response. And the value of these partnerships is validated in the lives and property saved and in our ISO top rating. And this brings us to the men and women of the North Charleston Fire Department. And this was a complete team effort, and every member of the department contributed in some way. However, there are a number who deserve special recognition, and I'll ask the following members to please join me up front as I call their names, and they can line up across the front here, please. First, Captain Paul Childs. Cap, please come forward. Last year, Captain Childs volunteered to assist with a hydrant maintenance program, and he moved to the office to work on this full-time. And this included overseeing hydrant maintenance and testing, geolocating hydrants, updating the hydrant tracking program, and maintaining all water supply records. Captain Stephanie Javazada, please come forward. Our accreditation manager, Captain Javazada, completed the deployment analysis of all of our structure fire responses and the analysis to determine daily staffing levels. And these efforts required running reports involving multiple agencies for several years. In key areas, as Chief Weber mentioned, the accreditation process has benefited our ISO rating by helping us measure and improve our response performance. Captain Bill Ratliff, please come forward. Captain Ratliff is our senior fire investigator, and he provides records from fire investigations. He developed investigation training procedures and documentation of this training, and he is also responsible for quality control of our emergency incident reporting. Battalion Chief Steve Darnell, please come forward. Chief Darnell took over the pre-plan program and worked to update the records for all of our commercial structures. He created the reports that provide the information ISO needed to verify our pre-plan program. Assistant Chief Brad Wade and logistics staff member Thomas Alex, and Chief Wade is out of town, but the logistics division was responsible to ensure that we maintained required equipment on all fire apparatus. They also were responsible to complete testing and testing documentation for fire pumps, aerial devices, and fire hose. And Battalion Chief Steve Feinberg and Engineer Chris Crankshaw and other shift personnel assisted in this effort. Assistant Chief Matt McDowell, please come forward. Chief McDowell and his staff are responsible for the training division for scheduling, teaching, and maintaining records on the thousands of hours of training that our personnel receive each year. Assistant Chief Cindy Collette, please come forward. As the Fire Marshal, Chief Collette oversees our fire prevention efforts through fire inspections to enforce the fire code and by overseeing public fire safety education. As Chief Weber mentioned, ISO only recently began giving credit for fire prevention. So Chief Collette developed formal procedures and records for both fire inspections and fire safety education to gain ISO credit, and she and her staff helped us gain this critical credit. We were also assisted by Renee Fry and Max Sterling from the Fire Museum, who provided attendance figures for those who received fire safety education at the museum, and this was counted as improving our ISO rating. Rick Dangerfield, please come forward. Our Safety and Compliance Officer, Rick Dangerfield, was instrumental in assisting all of our staff in developing our policies and procedures that fully complied with all applicable requirements for full ISO credit. Deputy Chief Kyle Minnick, please come forward. Chief Minnick leads our operations division, and he and his 10 chief officers, 51 captains, 51 engineers, and 111 firefighters all contributed to this effort. Their work, testing hydrants, conducting pre-plans, completing training, attending fire education events were all necessary to achieve this rating. But the most obvious contribution was by quickly responding to and extinguishing structure fires, day in and day out. As ISO transitioned to a performance-based system, our firefighters have proven that they perform among the finest in the country. Let's give all of our support staff and all of our firefighters a round of applause. I have one final recognition. Chief Munn, please come forward. Deputy Chief Joseph Munn. Chief Munn served as our project manager for this entire effort, and Chief Munn has been directly involved in working to improve our department's ISO rating since 1993. He was in charge of our hydrant testing program in 2004 when our department improved from a Class 3 to a Class 2 rating. And after our last inspection in 2013, where we maintained a Class 2 rating, we saw the opportunity to improve our rating under the revised system. However, with a high Class 2 rating, there were no large chunks of credit to be gained. So to achieve a Class 1 rating, we were going to have to try and improve in every single subcategory to gain the credit that we needed. In some cases, this involved months of work to gain small fractions of a point, tenths of a point, in some cases, even hundredths of a point. And after more than 2 years, in December 2016, Chief Munn told me we were ready, and sure enough, we were. This Class 1 rating is a credit to him and the coordination of the extraordinary talent and hard work of the men and women of the North Charleston Fire Department. I want to thank Chief Weber for coming here today to provide this announcement. Thanks again to all of our partners, our personnel, City Council, and Mayor Summey. Thank you.
Chief, on behalf of the council, we would like to acknowledge your hard work in the years now that you have been our chief and the outstanding accomplishments that has been made by our department, but learning, I guess, to know that we depend on others as well and having that relationship with all the other agencies in the area. And I think that communication is something that it really has taken us all to the next level. Not just our department, but every other department that is associated with that agreement. To the men and women of our fire department, thank you for protecting our citizens and making us a safer community. I know our businesses and industries truly appreciate this ISO 1 rating because it does affect the cost of their fire insurance. So on behalf of them, we thank you as well. God bless. Yeah, on behalf of the chief, you gentlemen and ladies can leave if you so desire. You don't have to sit and wait for the rest of the meeting. We'll give you a minute or two to do that.
I know they wanted to. They laughed. They were glad to hear that. He showed up real good.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please continue with the printed agenda.
The first item is a request to approve the minutes from the April 13th, 2017 City Council meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Before we call the roll, I do wish to acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Dorothy Williams handling the last two meetings for me. We had a death in our family, and I greatly appreciate her professionalism in conducting those meetings for us for those two meetings.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison? Mr. Brinson? Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And Mayor Summy.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 2 is the final reading of an ordinance rezoning the properties addressed as 7350 and 7400 Dorchester Road from R2 multifamily residential, B1 limited business, and B2 general business to planned development Crescent Point, and concurrently amend the comprehensive plan future land use map for a portion of the parcel 40400, Lot 6, changing it from multifamily residential to major business retail.
Have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy.
Aye.
Motion carries to approve unanimously. Item 2 is the final reading of an ordinance rezoning the property at 2520 Nirvana Drive, Charleston County, TMS 48610000073 from R1 Single Family Residential to ON Neighborhood Office, and concurrently amending the comprehensive plan future land use map for that parcel, changing it from single-family suburban to suburban office.
Move to deny. Second.
Motion and a second to deny. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy.
Aye.
Motion to deny carries unanimously. Item 4 is the final reading of an ordinance rezoning the property at 1643 East Montague, Charleston County, TMS 47003000360 from R1A low to medium density residential to B1 limited business.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mayor Summer, this is going to be something wonderful for the young ladies to be able to go to a sewing class. You know, like I told them, we offered it in high school when I was there, but they don't do it anymore. But now this young lady would like to open up a business, bringing in the young people on Liberty Hill and surrounding areas to teach them how to sew.
Very nice. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
No.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-1. Item 5 is the first reading of an ordinance amending subsections 7-8, B2, B3, B4, and 7-8C of the zoning ordinances of the City of North Charleston to empower the Planning Commission to conduct advertised public hearings regarding zoning amendments.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 6 is the first reading of an ordinance amending Section 2-41 of the municipal ordinances of the City of North Charleston to update the rules regarding public appearance before council and committees of council.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
can we take items 7 through 13? They're all resolution by title only.
7 through which one, 12?
13.
7 through 13 by title only. Clerk, please read.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between Dorchester County School District 2 and the City of North Charleston for School Resource Officer Program 2016-2017 school year. Number 8 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with the Commissioners of Public Works for the City of Charleston for the Collins Road Culvert Replacement Project. Item 9 is a resolution accepting portions of Preserve Boulevard and Winged Elm Street into the city system for maintenance in Council District 4. Item 10 is a resolution accepting Tallulah Road and Suwannee Road extension into the city system for maintenance in Council District 10. 11 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a memorandum of understanding with Lynn Willard, Low Country Grocers, LLC, doing business as Piggly Wiggly to provide incentives for the development of a grocery store at Shipwatch Square. Number 12 is a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of North Charleston and Front Door Communities, setting forth mutual understandings regarding operation of TIF financing at the Mixon Development Site. And number 13 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a mutual aid agreement between the town of Monk's Corner and the City of North Charleston regarding law enforcement assistance and support.
We have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion of any of the items?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
just a brief comment for clarity for the public, and I think for some others who don't always want to give the most accurate story on something we're doing that I think is a great venture here in the city of North Charleston, and that would be our Shipwatch Center for the grocer. It was said earlier by a news media source that what we're doing is giving away $500,000, and that was the extent of it. Well, let me, for the record, for the public, and I think we clearly identified it already, but for those who haven't heard it, we will be doing this over a 5-year period at 100,000 intervals per year to help promote a food desert come back to life for something that's so desperately needed in this city. We have had opportunities, and the mayor has worked diligently in this city through this council, and we believe we have finally achieved the goal that we have set forth. and it's our hope that it continues. And we are an active participant in it for good cause, for good reason. But let me add that this money that we're putting forward is not all 100% contribution to this grocer. This city will retain monies back through sales tax revenues and business license fees, which in essence doesn't cost us $500,000 or $100,000 a year. So that's the actual facts of the deal. And I just wanted to make that clear for the record.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other comments on any of the items?
Mayor Summy,
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
just like to thank Councilman Ord for that great statement he gave, because the Post and Courier is not our partner. Everything they put in the paper, please don't believe it. Call us and find out the truth, because they don't like us. Thank you.
Sorry, Bubba. Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, the clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King? Aye. Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Can we do another bundle?
Yes, sir.
That's item 14 through 19. I want to leave 20 for myself. That's appointment to the Board of Zoning Adjustment.
14 through which, sir?
19.
14 through 19 by title only.
14 is a request to award the bid for the construction of a basketball court at Collins Park Community Center to Enfinger Construction Group, North Charleston, South Carolina, in the amount of $118,000. 15 is a request to award a bid for asbestos abatement and demolition of 3 residential structures to Ladson Wood Recycling, Ladson, South Carolina, in the amount of $58,330. 16 is a request to award a bid for North Charleston Coliseum domestic cold water pipe replacement to Somerville Mechanical, Somerville, South Carolina, in the amount of $163,000. 17 is a request to award the bid for the Westcott Park double-sided full-color LED marquee sign to Signs Ltd. of Lake City Incorporated, Lake City, South Carolina, in the amount of $44,620. Item 18 is a request to award a bid for renovations to Fire Station Number 1 to Satchel Construction LLC, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, in the amount of $64,183.45. 19 is a request to fund a surface transportation impact study between the city, the South Carolina State Ports Authority, South Carolina Department of Commerce, the Division of Public Rails, and the State of South Carolina in the amount of $376,078, with each party being responsible for $94,019.50.
Have a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on any of the items? Yes, sir.
Yeah, that item on the surface transportation, that's so important. You know, we've been talking about this for several years now.
Yes, sir.
And, you know, it was part of our agreement many years ago, and so it's been kind of slow coming, but this is certainly going to be an important part of the rail movement through North Charleston, and that we've been fighting for so long, and I think it's going to be really beneficial for us, and I think they're going to be looking at this with some good recommendations. So I'm really glad that we did that.
It's one of those things that we probably ended up working out better for us in the delays, since now it looks like the 2 Class 1 rail lines actually want to go south instead of north, which means we can also look at the impact on the southern end of the city with the traffic study, knowing that the rail could be going through there as we were looking at the north end. So I think it's going to be exciting to look at ways that this council can work to make sure that the needs of our citizens in our community are met, along with the growth of the port and the rail in the community.
Mayor Summy,
Yes, ma'am.
Council, I'd like to say that on Monday at the COG meeting, the Council of Governors, that Councilman Skipper really made our point very, very clear and expressed our concerns about the monies and the different studies that had been done over the past years. So I'm very pleased with this recommendation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor
Any-
Summy.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to take an opportunity to thank you, Mayor Summy, and Councilman Ron Brinson for allocating the funds that were necessary for the new basketball court in Collins Park.
Glad to hear it, my friend. Any other comments?
Well, you got to thank us too. We voted for it.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Kenny, Bob, Mike, everybody.
All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson?
Aye.
Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And item 20 is a request to approve the appointment of Kimberly Allen to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll, excuse me.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Jamison?
Aye.
Mr. Brinson? Mr. Olds?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Skipper?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mayor Summy?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Mayor Summy, before
ma'am.
you call up the speakers, I would just like to say the Delta ladies will be working in Joppaway in my district. I'm helping to build a home for a needy person. And I know on the iPad, one of the ladies at your office were asking for volunteers to go in and help with that. And the Delta of North Charleston will be participating. I offered them water, or whatever.
Oh, whatever. That's a little scary. Let me also say that Kathy Love is not here tonight, but we need to recognize her. We've got the opening of a house for Stall High School. Kathy is in charge of our school resource officers, and we have discovered a group of young men at Stall High School that their mothers are homeless, and the young men cannot check into the homeless shelters with their mothers because of their age. And we've been able to work with a group led by Kathy that we have purchased a home in Colony North. We found a couple that will live in the home, and these 4 young men will now have a home that they can go to at night and be prepared for school the next day. And Kathy is an amazing young woman who's done a great job in that. But it shows the love of young people that our school resource officers do have. And I think this is going to be a very positive change in the life of 4 young men that will be there for the next grouping that comes along as well. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. Madam Clerk, we are going to open it up for our public hearings. To remind you, you have 3 minutes. Our clerk will call you forward and then give you, she'll be timing the 3 minutes.
Yes, sir. The first one is Richard Brewer.
Richard Brewer, I reside at 4967 Lake Palmetto Lane. I'm going to read most of this. The Lake Palmetto community would like to thank the mayor and city council for honoring your word to find a solution to our problem. When council approved the building of a landscape buffer at Lake Palmetto, after several years of hard work on everybody's part, I was in the audience, but I was not on the list to speak. So tonight I'm here to give a belated thank you. I also want to say, though, that on that night, I sat through 20 or 30 minutes listening to council being yelled at and told what they should do and how they should do it regarding how police handled a certain situation. The issue is important. The speakers were passionate, but there was no rational discussion. When council members tried to speak or ask a question, they were shouted down. I sat there and could only think of a child at a school that was in a fight several years ago. That child is now disabled. His mother has to feed him. She provides 24-hour, around-the-clock care for this young man. And there's another young man involved in that fight who's now in jail. How I wish a police officer would have been nearby, or maybe even one of those brave firefighters we had here a few minutes ago. I thought of our efforts to improve the lives of my neighbors at Lake Palmetto. We were also passionate about what we thought council should do. But we had a rational discussion. We showed respect, honesty, and yes, frankness. But guess what? Mayor, you and council returned that respect and honesty. Thank you again. There are hundreds of issues facing city that the city must deal with. And whether the issue affects a small group or the entire population of North Charleston, or just one person, the issues are all important. In all cases, rational discussion is needed. We cannot solve our problems by chastising citizens or public officials. Developing and maintaining a working relationship with rational discussion between the city and its citizens can only strengthen North Charleston. The win-win results at Lake Palmetto is one example of this kind of effort. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brewer.
All right, next.
Mr. John Singletary.
John Singletary, 4321 Waterview Circle. It was great to see that the fire department was involved in ISO 9000. I've been an ISO 9000 representative for the last 26 years with Hewlett-Packard as well as for Nucor. What troubles me about the situation is that since 2009, it was the fire department's diversity study that showed that North Charleston's fire department underrepresented the African American population. We've got 50% of the council African American. And to prove my point, every single person that stood up here happened to be non-African American, happened to be white. When we take a look at the fact that around 20% of the population in North Charleston, in terms of the fire department, happens to be African American, when you go to measure something, if it's important, like the fire department with ISO 9000, you set measurements and you reach your goal. If diversity was important, North Charleston would put it down to be measured. That they do not do. That's disheartening. The $1 million that Councilman Olds talked about, if you take a look at the HUD 101 statement, which I have a copy of here, as well as if you take a look at the contract for the Navy Hospital, $1 million was given to North Charleston according to the HUD 101 form that says that it was to be put in an FDIC insured institution for that grocery store. If that's the case, then the public deserves to see the deposit ticket. So that's the $500,000 that they're talking about missing, when $1 million was already given by the contractor, who I spoke with, who previously asked to put a grocery store there but was denied. and I've got the emails as well as I've got the audio recording to that effect. So there's $1 million, $500,000 that's missing. Not that we don't want the grocery store there, we do, and we commend the city for doing that. But at the same time, don't try to pull the wool over our eyes by saying, let's do some fact checking, and no one says anything about the $1 million that was given. At best, it makes the council look like they're not studious in terms of getting information, which is a sad thing to say. At worst, it makes them look like they're complicit with the administration's action to continually fleece the public. When we look at fact checking, the resolution 2012-082 shows that the city council authorized weed and seed funds for Bonds Avenue LLC. The same city council, thank you.
Just as a form of correction to the statement, the people who bought the Naval Hospital, we had an agreement with them if they would develop ShipWatch with a grocery store, that we would supplement the $1 million from the sale of the property to the grocery store. That contract was never lived up to. They not only have not purchased the property for ShipWatch in the grocery store, they're under bankruptcy on the hospital project as well, trying to sell off the corners as a form of income to solve the bankruptcy. So any documents that you have that would show that they're lying, we would love to have so that we could bring it to their attention through our attorney. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If you give it to the attorney, we'd greatly appreciate it. Yes,
And
sir.
thank you for clearing that, and for clarity, Mr. Singletary, because you made my name clear on the record about I'm not doing something studious. There's nothing hidden behind this agenda that you're looking at speaking to you now. The facts are the facts, and that's what I roll by. And we did not have $1 million that we shuffled $500,000 elsewhere. It was a $500,000 deal with this grocer, and as the mayor said, I stand firmly behind it. So anything to the contrary that you can validate, please present it to us.
Okay, next.
Is Mr. Jonathan Thrower?
Let's see, Jonathan.
No?
Whoa.
Next.
Michelle Melton?
Ms. Melton, is she here? Next.
Marvin Pendarvis?
Marvin.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. Marvin Pendarvis, 5088 Lackawanna Boulevard, North Charleston, 29405. I come before Council to speak about Senate Bill number 346 and how I would like to see Council support it. It's in reference to inclusionary zoning policies for the state of South Carolina being pushed by Senator Marlon Kimpson. It's in response to what many have called the affordable housing crisis. The bill would let cities and counties require developers to set aside up to 25% of the units within any future residential development to be priced as affordable housing. While those developers can pay a fee in lieu of including affordable housing in their developments, the developers could also get incentives such as density adjustments, modifications of height and floor area, whole or partial waivers of system development charges, and impact or permit fees. I say all that to say that we have a number of cities that have already come out and supported that. Greenville City Council earlier in March passed a resolution indicating that it support the State Senate Bill 346. In addition, our neighbors to the south, the city of Charleston and Beaufort, have already stated that they actually testified before a Senate committee and supported that. So with two of the state's top 5 populous cities having recognized that there's a problem, and at least on their end taking initiative to take some kind of action, I would urge North Charleston through this body to do the same. This region is growing rapidly, and the growth in the coming years puts the city of North Charleston in a unique position to be able to be the primary benefactor. So let's join our peers to the south and in the upstate. Let's support this bill and make North Charleston a place attractive and affordable for many of the working class citizens who live and come into our city can be able to live. So it's in response to the affordable housing crisis that we're all well aware of, and I think it's a good bill. It's already went through one subcommittee in the state Senate, and we've seen a number of municipalities come out in support of it, and I would urge North Charleston to look into it and do the same. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge and thank the Housing Authority for finally putting the property that was designated for home ownership that they were never able to fully build out, to put it on the bid market. And it was purchased, or the bid has been agreed upon at $1.6 million, I think it is, which is about $17,000 per lot. And the lots are already fully developed with water, sewer, sidewalks, street lights, everything. And if you've seen any development lately, that's an extremely good price per lot. And so we're expecting to see the two development groups that are working together to come in with affordable housing in that area, 99 lots. So hopefully that's going to help us get started down the road toward that need. And I couldn't agree with you more that it's something that we need to look at and get some support so that we can send it to Columbia.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just one further comment. I think this bill you're talking about is Senator Kempson's bill before the Judiciary Committee. Right. And you make some really salient points. It's a regional problem. I know I've heard our mayor address this many, many times. We talked about it at our Public Safety Committee meeting last week, and Councilman Brown, number 10, I think you were on a panel, weren't you, last week? On number 1. I get my Mike Browns mixed up here. So this is alive and well as a city issue, Mr. Pendarvis, and we've had some really interesting discussions, like how do you define, affordable and affordable housing? I guess we know it when we see it, but this is something that the whole region has to pay attention to.
I was surprised to see the article in the paper this week where the affordable housing allotment on Daniel Island, that was actually housing that was put out by the Housing Authority, was over $2,000 a month rent.
Okay.
Let's go figure that one out. Yes,
Mayor, something I'd just like to say to the young man, we will do a resolution in support of Senator Kempsey bill, letting him know that we are backing him also. And thanks for bringing that to my attention. I didn't see it, didn't read about it. But something else you did at the committee meeting, you brought some other good pointers from Columbia. So I don't know if you're working up there or working with whomever. But
I think he's working to get there.
Yeah. But thanks a lot, because you are bringing us and keeping us informed with a lot of good ideas. And thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I noticed in the news media the other day they talked a lot about the gun control bill in Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of the few jurisdictions that did not come out and support that bill because the police departments and all those other agencies supported that. Why would we not take a position on that?
What position would you want us to take?
Be opposed to it.
Oh,
People walking around with
I think
with
by
a gun
not
on their hip
supporting
all the
it,
time.
we are opposed to it because the others, the whole issue that you've got, and we know very well that there's enough illegal guns on the street. We don't need people packing legal guns on the street.
Walking around with them.
Yeah.
But all the chiefs and local chiefs, and I noticed North Charleston was not part of that. I wonder if that was an oversight, or I'm sure that we're not in favor of that.
I think you are aware our chief's been out a little bit, and I don't think it was adequately brought to our attention by the other police agency to coordinate something together.
Can we kind of get a resolution maybe in And like Dodd said, in supporters, I'd be opposed to that particular bill.
I did write a letter to the governor at his request opposing the increase this year in what we have to pay to the retirement package and the employees having to pay additional to the retirement package, basically with the understanding that the state should be straightening that up. They're the ones that have messed it up, and they should straighten it up without it falling on our backs. I don't know if the citizens know, but in the next 5 years, we'll be paying 6 cents on the dollar more for every employee that works for the city to go into the retirement fund, which means we will then be paying 15 cents on the dollar. For every dollar that an employee makes, we have to send 15 cents, the city's part, to the retirement system. And the employees will be paying about 9%. It's going to be about a 25% of an employee's pay to go to the retirement system to correct the mismanagement of the funds that have been going on in the state for these years. And I'm opposed to that. We have appropriated, tomorrow we have our budget workshop, and we've appropriated covering that 2 cents because it's probably going to pass. And that's a change of about 2 mills of taxes that it will cost the city this coming year. We're given a proposed budget that we absorb that 2 mills in cutting other things that are in the city, things that it would be better spent on than going to the state of South Carolina. Just wanted to make y'all aware of that. Okay. Anything else? Meeting's adjourned. Wait a minute.
Think,
Ryan, we got. I have to get my glasses on. Okay, this is just information that has been researched. North Charleston Fire Department is roughly 20% African American, which is 2.5 times the national average for fire departments. According to research from Rock Hill Fire Department, we employ more African Americans than any other fire department in South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
John, Mr. Singleton, you heard that? You missed that? Oh, wow, you gotta get it.